So grateful to be here and very happy to discuss these incredibly important and hard to talk about topics. He has an incredible backbone and staggering moral fiber. Howie is totally committed, completely ethical, totally admirable. No pressure if you can hear this, but honestly, Howie's a hero to me.
John, you joined us before, and it was a pretty incredible kind of testimony you gave, and you just devoted your life to advocacy for child trafficking, and even 9/11 truth. Maybe you could explain to us, in the last decade, what do you think the most challenging parts of coming alive on some of these issues have been?
Probably the hardest thing, and it continues, is just realizing that pretty much everything that I was told and taught since I was in grade school is probably not true.
Good evening, and welcome to the Traffic Report with our special guest, V. And Howie. Howie, how are you?
I'm okay, John. I'm doing all right.
How about you, B?
Hey,
you can tell, but I'm really angry. But I'm going to say I'm doing all right.
Yeah. In the cause of total transparency, I think we're all in a crappy mood tonight. So, I'll just speak for myself.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah. Should we ditto that? Yeah.
Like, and just the thought is, how much of this shit can we stand? But
yeah. It's been a burnout day. It really has. It's been a tough day.
Yeah. I am excited to hear V continue her story from where she left off, which is about the age of 14, and just am very grateful for her being here, part 2. But I think we're going to talk about some of this stuff that's going on, and you guys just go ahead. I'll jump in there. I don't want to talk about it right now. I'll just listen for a little while, but I'm sure I'll have something to say. So, and we always do this. We talk about, the corruption and the what's going on in the country, because that's why child trafficking exists. So if anybody wonders, well, why are you guys doing that? That's why we're doing it. It's big,
all a piece of that puzzle. Yeah.
Ugly circle, or something.
Right.
No, you guys need to vent. So go ahead.
All right, Howard, that's you. You're up.
Oh, I get the vent first.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, my biggest problem started yesterday when, it was around 7:00 and I look on Twitter and I looked to the hashtags and it was, Philly is Charlottesville was trending. And I said, Philly is Charlottesville. What's going on? And they were having a rally / protest / march down Broad Street. A synagogue and a church put it together, some organization called Power Interfaith Organization, whatever. And I'm like, it just never ends. And I was saying that I probably would have been there if I would have known about it, but it seemed to happen. It didn't get publicized until that day, and I just didn't hear about it. And I was wondering how they got the permits, because they blocked off probably maybe 2 miles of a street, Broad Street in Philadelphia. That it's a pretty big street downtown.
Sure.
I called today. They didn't get permits, they told me, and the police just allowed them to exercise their First Amendment rights. And I'm like, well, they can exercise their First Amendment rights, but you can't exercise your First Amendment rights in the middle of the street. That's a different thing. But and it was just another thing to rally against white supremacy, Nazis in the city of Philadelphia. And trust me, living here as long as I have, I assure you it's not an issue. So, but it's just another, but I know, I've said it before that the mayor, he's part of, his name's Jim Kenney. He's part of the resistance. The police, they have to do their job and, make sure all the stuff, they just, protect the safety of citizens and give people their rights. And I'm saying people do have the right, but, every time, I mean, this is probably the 6th or 7th march they've had in Philadelphia since probably March. They've had quite a few, and every time you turn around, and they're constantly shutting down Center City, Philadelphia. And I just saw that, and I'm like, this is just absolutely positively insane. And there's nobody there standing up against these people, and you're just allowed to call everybody who was a Trump supporter a Nazi, a white supremacist. And I'm sick of it. I'm just absolutely positively sick of it. And on normal circumstances, I'd be jumping all over the opportunity to go down and hold a sign against them, whether it's, and I'll hold the, like, I love Trump, just to troll that kind of crowd. And, I would feel perfectly comfortable doing that. But, now it's a situation where I have to be concerned what happens after I leave this, I leave that area and start like making my way back home because, I could be attacked, and I know that's the case. So, it's really, really frustrating on my end, but,
well, it's more than frustrating. It's dangerous. I mean, you've already been attacked, and I think we know that these things
are dangerous.
Yeah, it's very dangerous. I mean, these.
But I'm not. Yeah, but that the frustration is that I don't feel comfortable going out and exercising my First Amendment right. And then then today, of course, you look up and I hope Trump is assassinated is trending, and then I got to find out that there's some state senator in Missouri, Maria Chappelle Nadal, who's putting on Facebook that she hopes he gets assassinated.
Yes.
And then she,
why is that being allowed? I mean, why haven't?
Isn't that a crime anymore? Because that used to be a crime.
Right. But then I went to look her up, and there was she had retweeted back in I'm not sure what year she had done this. It just says August 14th, but somebody had tweeted out these maybe a couple years ago because she was involved in the Michael.
I sent
Michael Brown situation, and somebody had tweeted out, these ignorant cracker cops are making my city look bad. Not the protesters, the cops. And she retweeted that. These ignorant cracker cops are making my city look bad.
Right.
And she retweeted that. But that's not.
She was part of everything that was going on with Obama too.
That's not. But that's not racism. That's not racism.
Right.
Cracker apparently isn't.
No, it's not. It's not part of the agenda, and that whole, the whole civil rights agenda has been co-opted and just turned against. It's we can just get back to this left-right bullshit. That's all it is. I mean,
and Black Lives Matter has nothing to do with African American people.
Oh, you mean D. Ray who advertises Doritos? That guy?
Well, and the woman Howard was just speaking of. I mean, look at her at all the Black Lives Matter rallies and everything. I mean, she's right there front and center.
Well, but if you look at that rally yesterday in Philadelphia, I would say, just from my eye test, less than 10% of the people there were African American.
Well, and that's the case everywhere.
I just have to wonder how African Americans feel about all of these white people going around talking about protesting these white supremacists when it doesn't seem like the African American community seems all that concerned about it. That's my take on it.
I think they're not concerned because they're not sure what the hell is going on, because this is not their organization.
Yeah, well,
Well,
all these organizations, and we just did social engineering. That's what you're seeing, social engineering at work, and it's turning anybody that's taken on a label like liberal or conservative or whatever. If you take those labels, you are signing up for this BS, and that's what it is. It's in the street. It's being financed, and it's got nothing to do with civil rights. It's got nothing to do with human being and human being.
Yeah, this isn't
got everything to do with divide and conquer. That's all it is, and that's what you're seeing on a grand scale. It's being financed by billionaires. So hopefully, we're getting to the point that we can recognize that and just take it for what it is.
Well, my favorite meme of the day was and I never thought about it, but it was that Martin Luther King was against gay marriage, and I thought, and then maybe we have to start taking. And then they were saying, do we have to start taking his statues down? It's just a slippery slope. Like every if you go back through history, everybody that has a statue up, they're not gonna. They're not going to be the greatest person in the world unless it's like maybe Mother Teresa. And I'm sure if we started investigating her, maybe she's not all that great.
Well, and I don't know. I'm no fan of the Catholic Church, but as far as I know, anybody that could spend their life in Calcutta is a saint, doing what.
Yeah, I was saying that tongue in cheek, but there's a lot of statues out there of a lot of people, and if we start picking apart every single thing about each and every one of them, maybe we could just take them all down. No more statues.
Yeah. Well, and just
these people shouldn't be given the right to be taking these statues down in this day and age. I mean, this is just these arbitrary things that come up. When did they first start about all the statues in the South? It was 6 months ago or so that they really started to rally about removing everything. And
what struck me was even in those at Charlottesville, that you'd see that one of the main agitators that was there was wearing a New York Yankees ball cap, and she was obviously from Brooklyn, I think. And it's like, well, what are you doing in Charlottesville? And that's all this is. It's a well-financed attempt to pit human being against human being using race or whatever they can come up with, political ideology, and they're doing it. I mean, and until people rise above the labels that we've gladly taken on ourselves, it'll continue.
I'd love to be a field mouse on one of those buses on their way to being bussed into these protests and marches, because they're firing these people up. And it would be interesting to see and hear what exactly, they're using to rabble-rouse everything, and, what they're projecting. So when they walk off that bus, they're amped up to incite violence and chant. And
I would hope that you can see that both sides are being manipulated.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
all the money is out of the same pocket.
Being face to face with some of these people, being face to face with some of these people, they're not the sharpest tools in the shed. Like they're not like PhD candidates. I can assure you. But part of the frustration about all this too is that there are just the information and the stories coming out about child sex abuse are, once again, they're everywhere. And it's like, every time something like this happens, it's even in my own little world gets pushed, on the back burner, and Seth Rich and Imran Awan, who just got indicted today, on 4 counts, that gets pushed to the back burner. Like there's nothing else going on in the world except white supremacists are taking over the country all of a sudden. Like, and this is like,
it's all diversion. It's all diversion.
Yeah, right. But bottom line is it is working to some degree because everyone's worried about that and we can't get any traction on what we want to talk about.
Exactly.
And
because what is the mainstream media putting out there? They're putting their own narrative out there that they're, it's their script, it's their play, and then they report on it. And all the rest of the true evils that are going on and all the corruption in DC, it takes a backseat to everything.
I'm going to tweet something out into our Twitter line, and anybody that's watching, all you have to do is go on this website, and it would take you, I'm saying 10 minutes, and you go to a section in it. It's the International. This is how he hates this name, but it's the International Studies of Global Politics, and it's
right.
All anybody that's listening.
It's an interesting site
that feels like, okay, well, I'm on this side or I'm on that side, or whatever you feel, wherever your position in this whole thing, go in there and follow the money, okay? Because all these organizations that finance what's going on in this country, they're all clearly in there, and you can see the money that finances all the ones on the left, and you can see the money that finances all the ones on the right. And if you can't figure out from that all this is a divide and conquer psyop, then just continue to be polarized like this. So I'm going to tweet that. I've tweeted that I don't know how many times, and I would really wonder how many people have actually went on there, because I see comments, I see this, I see that, and it's like, well, I'm this and I'm that, and whatever the labels they're putting on themselves, and that just tells me that they don't want to know that they're being manipulated. And so I'm going to post that, and please visit it, and you'll see in 10 minutes how whatever side you think you're on right now is just a setup, and it's being worked, and you're being worked. So go on the Globalization and Covert Politics Institute for the Study of Globalization and Covert Politics, and the link will be right in our Twitter line. If you want to figure this out, if you want to just go on and status quo and wonder why what's happening is happening, then feel free to do that, I guess. But if you want to figure it out and remove yourself from that so you can be effective, I would.
Well, ignorance, John, is no longer bliss. Ignorance is dangerous, and that's where we are, really.
Yeah, talking about things getting pushed back to the back burner. There was one story, and I know some people are probably aware of it. I just wanted, before we get into these second part of her story, about a mother in Arizona, and I'm just going to read the article straight down. It's fairly short. Arizona mom accused of recording herself molesting children, selling videos online, and this is from Fox, and it made a few other things. And this should be, to me, this should be all over, CNN, MSNBC, Fox. But of course, this stuff doesn't make the television. An Arizona mother has been accused of taking videos of herself molesting 2 children and selling them online. Court documents show that Curry Hardwood, 28, has been accused of recording herself molesting 2 young children a number of times in the bathroom of her home and selling the footage over the internet. The details came to light after Hardwood allegedly gave her Pokemon Go account information to a friend because she was unable to log in. Hardwood's friend then reportedly saw 2 videos of the alleged sexual incidents in Hardwood's Gmail account, which he was able to access because of her Pokemon Go information. He also saw 3 separate PayPal transactions for $50, $101, and $115. Police served a search warrant to Hardwood's home on August 13th, and the woman allegedly told police that she masturbated via Snapchat live streams and was paid by a man she had met online. Hardwood reportedly was paid between $500 and $600 by the man throughout the last few months for the videos of her molesting children, which she allegedly told police she did because she needed the money. Hardwood faces charges of sexual exploitation of a minor and molestation of a child. I read another article. She did this. She's married, and she did it while her husband wasn't home. She did this all, and once again, she was paid between $500 and $600 to molest her children.
That's the cost of 2 souls, I guess. The going rate for 2 souls. Huh?
So,
and that's the most disturbing thing to me, and that included, Howie, is where this is going and how quickly it's going, and it's becoming digital, and it already has become digital. But it's kind of growing exponentially online. That's the stuff that Melissa the honeybee has been and continues to expose, and
right. And this wasn't, this isn't, I said they had a picture. They pulled some pictures off her social media. Looked like she had a pretty nice house. She had a job at a car dealership. I don't know what her husband did. They both worked. So this isn't like some drug addict needing the money. Like, I don't know what this is. And it was just, you're just looking at this like, it looks like a suburban mom needing $500 to $600 and she decides to molest her children. I just, it's, and people, and how this stuff is not like important to people. It's beyond me. It's beyond me.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Well, we've talked about this. People talk about it. They'll talk about news stories. They'll talk about past history. They'll talk about the churches. They talk about all these different things. But when it comes to the reality of doing something about what's really happening, all of a sudden people disappear. And we have to stay focused, and we have to, one of the things in trauma recovery that they teach you is that you have to sit with yourself and you have to sit with your feelings and you have to work through all that. And I think, this is a good example of, as human beings with what's happening to children in the world, we need to sit with this evil and this ugliness if we're going to eradicate it and if we're going to do something about it. We need to understand it, and we need to have plans of action in order to start taking these people down. Thankfully, we do have a president who's interested, it appears, in doing that. And we need to be more focused. And I think we need to be, we need to make our presence known way more than we are.
Yeah, are statues really that important when our kids are being raped every day? I swear to God, and we're gonna get right into V's story, and I'll make this the last thing that I have. But I just walked into our local store the other day. I looked down, and we're a small town, the Kingsport News, and they just ran a sting that rounded up 16 teachers, leaders,
minister, I think, and
Stop worrying about the statues and the other crap that you're being manipulated to concentrate on, and concentrate on our children. We have somebody here tonight that's not only knowledgeable on all these topics, but has lived it. So please listen to what V has to say about her experience, about being trafficked, and how, and on a lighter note than what we've been talking about, how she has recovered and is thriving, as far as I know. So it's all yours, V. Let's hear it.
My gosh. Okay. Well, I think the other night we kind of left things at about the point in my life where I was like 14 years of age, and I had made the point of saying that throughout my younger childhood, I had a fantasy in my head that as far as I knew, my biological father was alive and well, and he was out there somewhere, and that I used to tell myself, well, someday he's going to come and rescue me on a white horse and all of this, and it was one of the things that I did in order to keep myself sane, I guess, if you will. And so lo and behold, at age 14, my mother was going through another divorce. And I saw that as an opportunity to kind of break out of this life that we had had for so long and start trying to maybe make some decisions for myself. And it was at that point in time that I talked to some of my family members, and I said, I want to get in touch with my biological father, and this is really important to me. And I believed that this was going to be a catalyst at the time for really turning my life around and helping me to heal and everything else. And so I was able to make that happen. He wasn't difficult at all to track down, and he was a successful businessman, and so I contacted him, and he was traveling, I remember, at the time, and he said to me, well, when I get back in town, we're going to get together, and I can't wait, to see you and meet you all over again, and of course, this was, in my mind, it was like, wow, this is like a dream come true. And it almost helps wash away some of the other things. And so he came back into town, and we made plans to, meet and have dinner and whatnot. And within hours, literally, of him coming back into my life and me coming back into his, it was like I was thrown almost virtually into the same situation that I just left, with the exception that it maybe looked on the surface to be a little bit more glamorous, if you will. But he immediately started introducing me to people that he knew, and I was, all of a sudden, I was this like Barbie doll that he was presenting out there to his friends and people that he knew, and business associates and whatnot. And my father had, his mother had never been married. He was born out of wedlock, and was actually the product of a relationship my grandmother had with one of the mafia bosses in Cleveland, Ohio at the time. And so he grew up being connected to all of these people. And so all of a sudden now my life is totally different, but I'm 14 years old, and I'm hanging out all of a sudden with all of these people that are very powerful and
shady.
And what's that?
Shady.
Well, I was put in a situation where, it was for lack of a better term, I was thinking the other day how, Howard's absolute disdain for Joe Biden, but that's what it was like. I felt like I was constantly, being mauled by people. And then at the same time, if my father was out of town, I was followed constantly. I was watched. I was supposedly, quote unquote, being protected. But meanwhile, my father was sexually abusing me. And, I remember this all happened all at the same time. And it was so tragic for me because I had pinned my hopes and dreams on this. And literally within, days, I went from one situation into another. And I remember feeling to myself, well, what are you going to do? You can't say anything, or if you protest or this or that, he's going to leave, he's going to leave your life again forever. And then who do you have? There's no one left. All these crazy thoughts. And
I don't think that's crazy. I don't think that's a crazy thought under the circumstances.
Well, and then and his grooming and his behavior of me, with me was completely different than that of, my mother's ex-husband. His behavior with me was that, on the surface and in public and everything, he had me on a pedestal. Now, however, in private, he abused drugs and alcohol and all these other things. And he could be extremely, violent and verbally and emotionally abusive and all these other things that was not his public persona per se.
Without or going into as much or as little detail as you'd like.
Yes.
So you basically you meet your father, you reconnect with him. For people that just don't understand, how did the process work where, he starts sexually abusing you? I mean, I'm just trying to
it was just like I was his property, and it just happened. And
when you first met him, was he treating you like a long, a daughter that he hadn't seen in 14 years or 13 years?
I think the thing too is what you have to realize is that when you meet someone, and he would have been, at the time he was in his 30s. Okay. So I hadn't lived with him from the time I was like 18 months old. So you have strangers coming together. But at the same time, we're biologically connected. But in retrospect, I've thought, what are the odds of this happening that, I go from someone I'm not even biologically connected to the person that had to do with me even coming into this life. And, him perpetrating the same behaviors.
And he had no idea about the situation with your stepfather.
He didn't know at that time. I mean, I ended up eventually telling him, and I can tell you his reaction was, he was furious. He was, there was all this drama around it and everything.
What a stand-up guy.
Oh yeah. Well, how dare someone abuse his child? Okay. Now, meanwhile, all of these things, I end up pregnant, and I end up now in a situation where, you have to get rid of it, and this, that, and the other thing, and I'm like, oh my God, I love kids, animals, all of this. And so, I'm literally, this is before the days of computers, obviously, and everything else. And I'm literally like going to the library and trying to study genetics to find out if I have this child, is this child going to be okay?
Wow.
Right.
And, how sick is that?
Yeah. And I'd like just to point back to and you've obviously broken out of this. You've broken the cycle, but the fact that he was married to your mom.
Yeah.
And her picker was evidently broken, and anybody that.
It was my grandmother's picker, John. And
yeah.
As we talked about, she had been abused as well, but my grandmother was really the one that brought him into the fold.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Even worse,
Yeah.
The generational aspect of this, and you're basically going from the frying pan into the fire, and none of them see themselves that way. He probably saw himself as, like Howie was saying, a stand-up guy that, but this, I'm outraged at this happening to my daughter, but I'm basically doing the same.
I was being sarcastic about that.
I know that, but that's what I mean. That's he probably saw himself like some kind of white knight, which he obviously wasn't. But my God, you're, and you're looking for some sort of parenting from somebody. And
I was looking for a parent, which I never had. My mother was a checked out parent. As I said, she didn't want to be a mother. She didn't want to be that was never on her agenda. And the thing is too, what happens to people like myself and countless other children that go through these things is that, and I think this is such a missing piece that doesn't get talked about enough. I never, ever felt like a child. And to this day, I don't really know what childhood, quote unquote, really is, because I felt like I was an adult from the time I started taking care of my little brother, who was 6 years, 5.5, 6 years younger. I had too many adult responsibilities and concerns and fears and just trying to keep yourself safe and alive and all those other things. And that was a huge problem for me, even going to school growing up, because I couldn't identify with my peer group. I couldn't identify with these kids I was going to school with. It was like, oh my God, they're
thrust into adult.
Well, but it's like, in my mind, oh, they're acting stupid and childish and trivial, and why do they behave that way? And, I'd only really been around adults.
Did your father ever remarry?
Oh, he had been married several times, yes. Mm-hmm.
But when you met him, he was single,
he was in between wives when, I came back into his life, yeah.
And
but I mean, I'll tell you, the people in my life that, at that time, and I, for example, it would be, nothing for someone to say to me, oh, hey, your dad's the greatest and all this. And of course, this is how these men would talk to me and all these other things. But this is after, I'd see, my father, standing around having a scotch with, someone and talking and all this. And then these people were like vetted to be okay to be around me. But meanwhile, it was like, well, I'd really like to take you to New York this weekend for a series game. And meanwhile, that entails the fact that we're going to be hanging out with Frank Sinatra and some other people and everything. I mean, these were the people that, he hung with, that he was raised around, that he lived around.
Yeah, and not a very healthy group. Let me just take a quick, it's just so coincidental that this just happened. I read, and I know, V, you are interested in Native American spirituality, and I just want to read. This was I get a little reading every day that's the Native American, and it's just right on what you're talking about. Can I read it? Are you there?
I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm here.
Wow. I'm going to try to reconnect. Skype doesn't like me. I don't know.
No, she's here. She's here.
She's here.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
I apologize.
Oh.
John. I think John lost connection.
We lost John again. Yeah. He'll reboot.
Stand by.
There he is. John?
No, we still don't have.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you. Yes, we're here.
Boy, Skype's having some fun with me. I don't know if you heard any of that, but I just wanted to take a second to do this.
Yeah, we heard that.
Okay. All right. It says, if a child hasn't been given spiritual values within the family setting, they have no familiarity with the values that are necessary for the just and peaceful functioning in society. When we're born, we start with a beautiful, empty mind, ready to be given our beliefs, attitudes, habits, and expectations. Most of our true learning comes from watching the actions of others. As we watch our family or relatives, whatever their actions and values are, so will be the children's values and actions. We see our families living just a just and peaceful way of life, so then will the children. If we see our family shouting, arguing, and hateful, so it will be for the children. The cycle of life, baby, youth, elder, adult, is all connected. If the older ones have good values, it will be connected to the children. So, thought that.
Well, my immediate reaction to that, as you were speaking those words, and they're so true, is that I certainly see that in my 9-month-old grandson, whose personality is just so rapidly developing. And one of the things that he absolutely loves doing now, and, they change so quickly from week to week, but he loves to imitate. And, so what you just said, how true is that? He wants to imitate. So if he's imitating and he's around evil and he's around, depravity, then that's what he's going to learn to imitate and learn to be. And we have to be role models and loving human beings in order to raise children that are going, to make this a better world.
And that's why you're a miracle, and all of these survivors are miracles, because in spite of being modeled with probably the worst behavior on the face of the earth, you overcome that and you grow into successful human beings that care about other human beings. So that's pretty special in my book. And you're teaching your grandson. You've broken the cycle, V, and that's what it's all about. That's why, part of why I do this, and I'm sure why anybody that works in this area does this, to break that cycle and to stop this where it stands right now, in wherever that is, and you've done that. So and
that's why there's power in numbers, and that's why all of us coming together and sharing and being strong together and helping those that need our help in the moment, and then those people can go on and awaken other people and help other people, because really, what kind of society are we if our children are being raised in this muck that we're in? I mean, even just in our country, not even looking at globally, even though we know all of this is a global problem. We need a better world for these children to grow up in order to have a better humanity, a better society. And
the way I look at it, we don't have a country. I mean, we don't. You can get out there and, I'm a patriot and I like the flag and this. If you know this is going on, and you're not doing something about it, you don't have a country. There is no country. The laws don't matter. The Constitution doesn't matter. As long as one child is being raped, there's, don't take any comfort in the fact that you're an American. So.
Right. Absolutely.
I still have some questions about it, because it's, and somebody just tweeted in that this story is basically it's fucking crazy, and yeah, it is.
It is crazy.
Yeah. How long?
This is the tip of the iceberg.
Right. I mean, there was two. I have two questions. I mean, my first question is, I guess what was your mindset? Why this was going on. I mean, obviously you were, abused by your stepfather. So, I guess, I don't know if that makes you more, I don't know if I want to say used to it, or it seems a little more normal. I
don't think it's that. I think it's, there's a deep-seated fear. And I will also tell you that I had absolutely zero self-esteem. None.
Sure. Well, I can imagine.
I mean, I could be told 24/7, oh, you're beautiful and you're smart and you're this. All of that stuff was rudder. Nothing meant anything to me, because I was this black hole inside. And that's the honest truth. I mean, there was my core was empty, because I didn't have people filling it up and, creating this nurturing life for me. And so how often would you see your dad? Well, there was actually a period of time where I lived with him. So It was, I mean, because of what was going on with my mother and all of these other things. So
that's your biological father. So,
correct.
So you ended up living with him.
Correct. And I'll tell you guys, I mean, I'll tell you, November, actually, Thanksgiving evening 2016, I get a phone call from him. He's still alive. I get a phone call from him, and he's calling, to wish me happy Thanksgiving and blah, blah, blah. And this is like out of the blue. And so all of a sudden he says to me, well, I've been giving it a lot of thought about, you and I and everything. And I'm like, thought about what? So, of course, in my mind, even though, the child in me is going, oh, he's going to ask for forgiveness. He's going to apologize. He's going to, beg me to, understand or whatever. And instead, of course, it was all about him. And he said to me that, well, you have to understand all of this happened because I was totally obsessed with you. And that was his reasoning, explanation. And I was just supposed to take it that he couldn't help himself because he was totally obsessed with me. And he didn't want me to be with anybody else but him, and yada, yada, yada. Okay.
And this was your biological father?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
And he would tell me, when I was younger, he would say things to me like, you have to, because he would travel for business and he would go to Europe and whatnot, but he would tell me, you have to understand that this is all going to work out, because the more time I spend in Europe, the more I realize that you and I just are not made to be here in the United States. We need to move abroad, and then our life will be completely normal, just like everybody else there.
Yeah.
I mean, this
as bad as it is here, it's definitely worse in Europe. I mean, a lot of that is culturally more acceptable.
Well, at the time, I intellectually I didn't know that. I mean, I do now. It makes a lot of sense to me now. But as a young girl, it didn't make any sense. I mean, I was like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, and he's thinking even at this point that this is okay on some level, or on all levels.
Well, I mean, again, we're talking about, not that many months ago, and he still thinks that it is. I mean, he still, if you, probably if you waterboarded him, he's going to give you all the same answers.
Can we do that?
I don't know why that just popped into my head. Waterboarding.
I can arrange that.
I don't know where that came from. It was a Freudian slip.
What are you doing this next weekend?
Oh my God.
So, are you convinced that he, or did he ever say that he was never, that he never raped other young girls?
I never saw anything to that effect. He was a complete womanizer. I mean, that was his personality, and
right.
he could get away with a lot of things because he was, he was physically very attractive, and he had the things that someone moving through that type of society, can get away with.
Right.
Like a Bill Clinton.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
When you were around these other guys, I mean, were there other young girls around or underage girls?
Not my age. No. Mm-mm.
Oh, you're the only one.
Okay. I was the only one. I mean, in that particular genre of places that he would take me, and where.
But did everyone know how old you were? I mean,
Oh yeah, but he loved to tell people how old I was. Yeah, he loved that.
Yeah, and in his mind, in his cover, that he was just a doting, father.
Right, exactly.
Wow.
And he was always extremely demonstrative with me in public and everything else, and it was like, but and he would make a big deal of, he made a big deal of luring other men in and it was just, it was just the way it was.
And unfortunately, time is moving along here, and I hate to be the one, the timekeeper, but I want to hear.
We want to talk about our hashtag too on Twitter.
I want to talk about first your recovery and when does that start, and I want you to talk about a few of those.
Okay.
We're going to have to repost those somehow. The links, I'm going to get them back off you, and they will appear either in our Twitter line or on our the show notes. But I want to hear how you get in recovery, and basically, that's what I want to hear, and then hashtag away.
Yeah, in all honesty, it took me a very long time. I had tried going to a couple of different therapists when I was younger, probably like in my 20s, never worked out. I will say that anyone seeking help and in your own recovery, please shop around from the standpoint if you go to see a therapist and you're not comfortable, and it's not, because my personal belief is that survivors have some of the best intuition going when it comes to people and dangerous situations and when things don't seem right. And one of the biggest things I can say is trust your intuition, and don't let other people dictate what you should do but it's a long journey. And I was very self-abusive for a long time. I've tried to take my own life in the past. It's something that is always with you. It's still with me. It's always with me. It's with me every day. And of course, doing what I do and advocating and everything else, it's, I'm constantly triggering myself. But finding a really good therapist. I also think that there are, depending on what your own spiritual needs are, or where you're comfortable with communing with your higher power. All those things are very important, and it really is a self-discovery, and it's really coming to find out who you are, maybe for the first time. And trying to build yourself into a full human being. I sometimes wish I had the years, raising my children to do all over again, because I wasn't a whole human being during that. I started having very severe panic attacks when I was 17 years old. Those went on for, almost 15 years before I actually found out what was going on with me. I didn't even know what was wrong with me. I always thought I was having a heart attack. So I think the medical piece is also important. You need to know whether or not you're medically healthy, and then, go from there. It changed my life a lot once I was able to get myself in a place where I wasn't having these horrible panic attacks all the time, because it got to be, it got to the point where I could have ended up being totally agoraphobic and like never leaving, my home environment.
And it was work, wasn't it? Because I know I've got a little bit of personal experience. Yeah, and
a lot, John. And like I said, life is, we all have our trials and tribulations, and life is an ongoing journey. And you have good days, you have bad days. But it's like anything else. I have, I may go along for a month and feel great, and I'm really focused on things and whatnot, and something could happen, or I get triggered, and and I do a lot of self-talk. It is that journey, but it is having resources at your fingertips that, even if you're alone, resources that you can go to help yourself feel safe. There are some good online communities, especially with the internet, that even if you're by yourself, you're home at night, you can't sleep, and you're feeling all alone, and you're feeling like you're the only person in the whole universe that has gone through or are going through abuses. Reach out to other people. There are some safe spaces to go to. At least discover that you're not alone.
Yeah. And I'll anybody listening and everybody listening, and I'm sure if they follow our Twitter line, they know who you are, and that's our children 11 at our children 11 on Twitter, and I'm sure anybody that's needs resources or
absolutely
information.
I would invite anyone. I mean, you can direct message me, send me a tweet, whatever. Believe me, I don't have all the answers, but I certainly would do anything in my power to help anyone that I can in any ways that I can, that I'm able to. So.
And we, like I said, we will have those. There was several websites that.
Mm-hmm. And those are all things that I've worked with and continue to work with, and have had success. And I believe it's like with anything. Sometimes something may come into your life that may really be helpful to you. And maybe it's just a piece of something that you learn that you take with you on your journey, and leave the rest. Take what you need, leave the rest, and continue on in your journey. And I also believe the universe gives us what we need when we need it, and I think staying open and being aware of what's going on, listening to.
Hello?
Are you there? I don't fear you.
I don't know. Yeah, V. Yeah, I think V got dropped. I don't.
Boy.
Well, right in the middle.
Thank you, Skype and Microsoft for.
Yeah. I don't know why we had so many problems tonight.
Well, we will.
Well, we were going to talk about. Yeah, we wanted to. Yeah, we wanted to talk about. There's a hashtag on Twitter, Pedogate News. It's just Pedogate, NEWS, and we've been using it for a couple weeks, just to post articles. Is somebody trying to call?
Yeah, she came through on my Skype. V, are you there?
No, she's not.
She's on my Skype. Can you hear me, V? Hold on. What? Hold on. Oh boy. No, okay, she's gone again. Go ahead with the hashtag. I'm sorry, Howie.
Yeah, we're just if people find an article about a child.
Back. Okay. Sorry. Hashtag. Hurry up. We're almost
yeah. If finding articles about child sex abuse arrests and convictions, and just posting them, nothing else. Just the article for wherever it's from, and posting it to Pedogate News. So hopefully it's a resource, and then when people go on that hashtag, they can just look article after article after article after article, because we have pieces of evidence, obviously survivor stories like these, and we have actual arrests. Those are, people are always like, well, where's your evidence? Where's your evidence? That is our evidence, and we need to start getting it into one place. So if someone says, well, what evidence you have, go to Pedogate News, then take a look at all the evidence. So
hashtag Pedogate News.
It's even on Gab too. I'm using that hashtag on Gab now, and we're all on Gab as well. And
all right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, V.
You gotta come back.
All right. Thank you, Howie.
Have a great week and have fun.
See you Tuesday, everybody.